everything we do is sports. We live, breathe, eat, sleep sports every single day. So when you do that, it allows us to go very deep. Not maybe potentially not as wide, although it is pretty wide if you think about sports. We go very deep, and being domain focused allows us to increase our hit rate or try and identify interesting opportunities, build theses in the industry. We're extremely thesis driven in the way that we invest.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SportsTech ALLSTARS podcast. This is Rohn, and I'm recording this episode actually from Hong Kong. I'm going to date this episode a bit because I'm here as part of our collaboration with a very cool sports tech investor group here in Hong Kong called Aqua Bloom Sports Tech Group. We're doing a small networking event where we're connecting to a bunch of new investors here. So if you're interested, if you're from the region, feel free to reach out to us and have a chat. But speaking of investors, speaking of new ones and old ones, we've got I've got a really cool part to do today. We've got Max Feldstein, VP from Elysian Park Ventures. Elysian Park have been OG of the sports tech investment landscape, ranging from companies like DraftKings and Freeletics in the past to more interesting new deals such as Breakaway Data or The Gist, women sports by women for women, together XR as well. So we've got a fantastic portfolio of companies. I'm really excited to have Max on the show. Welcome to the podcast, Max.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. Fan of the show. Happy to be here. So looking forward to the conversation and impressive knowledge of the portfolio out of the gate. So thanks for teeing it up.
Well, I have to ask, Max, are you genuinely a fan of the show, or are you just being nice to me?
No, I mean, we have partners that have been on I am genuinely a fan of the show. I know Anthony of Fitt Insider has been on the show, and Fielding from the Global Sports Venture Studio. So I've been
Yeah.
tuning in to kind of hear our, broader, friends of Elysian that have joined you so far. So definitely a fan of the show, and definitely happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words, Mike. Max, not to put you on the spot, but yeah, that's the kind of banter that we go for. But before we get into the actual, like, let's say, story of Elysian Park, and especially the new venture, EP Golf Ventures, which is the latest fund, which was announced, let's say, mid of last year. It's been a while. But as part of this kind of flow of new funds that we're seeing enter the sports tech space, I'm really curious to get your perspective on that. But like I said, before we get there, I always start with the person that I'm talking to. I want to know about your journey because I know you've been at Elysian Park for a while now, grown through the ranks from associate to VP last year. Congratulations on that. But tell me about your journey, about what attracted you to sports tech and specifically to Elysian Park.
Yeah, thank you. So I should start. I'm from New York. I currently work out of New York. I know Elysian Park in the we have sort of a foothold and a footprint in LA and on the West Coast. I'm personally in New York. I went to NYU, and at NYU I studied sports management. So getting into sports, breaking into the business of sports has always been a goal of mine. Immediately after NYU, I worked at a firm called Guggenheim Partners in their investment banking group, focused on TMT, which is technology, media, and telecom. And what attracted me to Guggenheim initially is they were doing a lot of M&A and investment banking in the sports industry. So that was, for me, a conduit or a way for me to build a financial skill set, but also do it in the industry or in industries that are adjacent to the one I was personally interested. I also played sports growing up. Basketball was my sport. So I've always been sort of in and around the sports industry, kind of wanted to make a career out of it. So Elysian Park was a perfect fit for me just in terms of my personal interest and background. So I started there about 5 or 6 years ago. At the time, the sports landscape was very different. I think a lot of my friends in sports management were, trying to become sports agents, or they were working in, ticket sales at, the Mets or the Yankees, marketing for Nike and Adidas. At the time, things were very different. DraftKings was just this small daily fantasy sports player, introducing something new to the market, which was daily fantasy sports, which no one had ever heard of. Peloton had a Kickstarter campaign that they had just launched for a cool new bike. I don't think anyone knew what an NFT was at the time. So when I started, things were very different, but I knew this was kind of an industry that was sort of primed for growth. It had been attracting some capital at the time, and I was able to kind of meet the founders of Elysian Park early on, and I started there about 5 or 6 years ago, and since then, the industry has really exploded.
I don't think a lot of people know what an NFT really is even now. So we'll see how that one goes. But as you said rightly, right at the end, this industry really has exploded. I mean, I went through Elysian Park's portfolio a bit at the start. I mean, obviously you guys are really well known. One of a couple of funds, I won't name the others, but one of a couple of funds that I really follow because I find your investment activity super interesting. It's kind of funny because I'll usually find a startup that I like or like kind of tracking or seeing in the news a bit, and maybe 3 months later or 6 months later, I'll see a funding round and say, oh, Elysian Park is in there. Of course, these guys are on the radar. So kudos to you and the team for some amazing deal flow. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you have seen your investment thesis evolve over the last 5-6 years as this space has continued to evolve. In our reports, we talk about it a lot. Like I think 2016, 17, 18, sports tech globally was attracting 3-4 billion, maybe 5 billion tops, and we were like in investment in startups, and we were saying, okay, that's a good strong number. And then post-COVID, bang, we saw this huge takeoff, crossing 10 billion in 2021. In 2022, also nearly touched 10 billion as per our numbers, which I really trust and believe. So clearly, there's been a real upswing in sports tech and a lot of new entrants, new funds playing in the space. So how has that affected your investment thesis? How do you view the sector? What kind of industries or areas are you especially bullish about?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think there are a few elements in there that are pertinent to Elysian Park. I think, just to pull it back, Elysian was founded in 2014, as a global strategic investment platform that was, focused on the intersection of sports technology and entertainment. That is still true. But I think our new focus, or what we sort of, a dedicated new areas of focus for us, or how we describe our areas of focus, is now what we call Sports Plus. And that's Sports Plus technology, Sports Plus health, Sports Plus culture, and Sports Plus commerce. I think, the first phase of Elysian Park was very sports technology heavy. And I think that, as we were, discussing earlier, that just where the sports industry was at the time. It was all the opportunities were within what we call just traditional sports tech. I think that sort of expanded and continues to expand into areas that are equally as interesting as technology, which is still a big area of focus for us. For things like culture, and which we saw a lot during the COVID pandemic as things were happening. If you saw the Michael Jordan documentary and like what that meant for culture, that's just one example of a lot of different cultural opportunities in sports, and nothing can grab a cultural zeitgeist like sports can. So you want to invest behind those opportunities. Health, I think, like you said, with COVID, I think it's really forced us to kind of focus on our health more and grapple with our own mortality. And I think where it comes to elite fitness, where certain technologies and opportunities that were only available to elite athletes for a very long time are starting to kind of come downstream and become more available to just you and me. Things like tracking sleep cycles in Aura, which is a company in our portfolio. I think could be a foreign concept to us 5 or 6 years ago. So these are all sort of new areas of focus for Elysian Park, and we've broadened our focus since we were founded in 2014.
Yeah, and I think what you guys have done an amazing job of is really seeing the future, which is, I mean, ideally what the job of every VC fund is, or any sort of investor, is to be predictive about it. But your hit rate has been really good. let's say, why is that? Can you break that down for me? What is your investment thesis, or let's say your investment process? Like, how do you, is it just always about the team? That's the main thing that you're looking at? Is it the core IP and where it comes from? Is it the, blue ocean market opportunity? Because as you said, daily fantasy was not a thing until it became a thing. Tracking sleep was not a thing until it became a thing. And these are, when I say became a thing, it became a thing that everybody does, right? So how do you identify that, or what is the process that takes you there? Of course, there's no set formula, but I'm just curious to know why you guys have such a, maybe a better hit rate than a lot of other funds that we know.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for saying that. I think there are a few pillars on which Elysian was founded, which are all different ways that we like to create early stage and venture style returns while stripping out conventional venture risk. And we talk a lot about leveraging our platform to create unfair advantages for the companies in which we invest. So as a result of that, try, like you said, to increase the hit rate by leveraging sort of access, insight, advantages across the platform. Our ownership group has a unique set of kind of assets within sports, and
Sorry,
everything
just to stay on that. Sorry, Max, just to stay on that for a second. I don't want to ask too many questions that maybe you're not at liberty to disclose. But when you say platform, when you say access, are you talking about access to people or access to resources within the sports industry that helps these companies grow? Or is it access to smart capital that changes the vision, makes it bigger? Like what, how does it really work, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. It all starts with us being domain focused, right? Everything we do is sports. We live, breathe, eat, sleep sports every single day. So when you do that, it allows us to go very deep. Not maybe potentially not as wide, although it is pretty wide if you think about sports. We go very deep, and being domain focused allows us to increase our hit rate or try and identify interesting opportunities, build theses in the industry. We're extremely thesis driven in the way that we invest, and as it relates to your question about the platform, I think we've built a platform at Elysian Park that includes both direct investments, strategic operations, wholly owned companies that focus on marketing and creative, website design, PR. That's a firm called Robin. You mentioned Breakaway for performance science. Demand Analytics is a company that we've invested in, that we refer to as a strategic platform for dynamic ticket pricing. So we built this kind of across Elysian Park and these strategic service platforms in order to service the companies in which we invest, which is a way to just create advantages for ourselves and for the companies in which we invest, via the platform that we've created. So that's what I was referring to when I talk about just the access and the insight. We're sort of domain focused, we're thesis driven, and we've built these strategic service platforms inside of Elysian Park, which is different than I think traditional VCs, as a way to service the companies in our portfolio, and by doing that, I think we sort of pull out a lot of value that would have otherwise been lost.
Fair. Good to hear. And I like the idea of kind of making those cross connections within your portfolio and seeing how it can, like what kind of synergies it creates. You mentioned some companies already, and I've already mentioned some big successes that Elysian Park has managed to be a part of in those journeys. Let me ask you personally, has there been like a favorite deal or something that you've worked on yourself that you really like to point out and say, hey, that one is mine?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't I think it's a team effort, obviously. And it's just one thing that pops out, like our co-founder and managing partner Colva Nice always says, like, we don't make trades, we don't make they're not deals for us. So like that's sort of ingrained in my mind. It's like these are we build things. So one of the things that come to mind is a company called Synergy Sports, which was formerly Atrium, which was an investment that we made in one of the early accelerator programs that we ran. And it was a $500,000 small investment in a company called Key Motion, which turned into a company called Atrium Sports, which we basically built with Nick Maywald and a couple of our partners, and offered them seed capital, built it up in a way where they were self-sustainable, and then acquired a company called Synergy Sports, and then combined all the pieces, and then sold it off to Sport Radar, which is now a big public company in the sports data space. I think that was a 2 or 3 year journey that was a really good opportunity for me and good experience, and a perfect example of how we walk before we run. It started with a very small investment, turned into a big M&A deal, and another perfect example of how we built things as opposed to trade things. So I think I'm pretty proud of that one.
Nice, good story. And you clearly, as you said, as you're building things, you're helping the company that you're working with at various points on their journey as well. And I think that's clearly an advantage that you bring to the table. I cannot have an investor on the show without asking about, let's say, and I think you already know, you're nodding, but what question I'm going to ask about the sentiment that there's a downturn in capital availability, there's downturn, sports tech startups, not just sports tech, but startups in general are struggling to raise money. I can back that up with data that from November last year till February of this year, I think these have been the lowest months individually for sports tech by funding. I mean, this is, of course, we consider data once a deal has been publicly announced. Deals take a long time to get there. A lot of times deals get announced much later after they were completed. So that's different. But certainly these last 3-4 months have been really slow. At the same time, I talk about it, we did it in last month's newsletter, that while this is happening simultaneously over the same 3-month period, we've had so many new funds announce either their second round or their third corpus or whatever, from Sapphire Sport, Courtside, KV Partners, Will Ventures, and a bunch of others as well. So what is your take? How do you reconcile this duality that there is, startups are complaining that there's no money, and yet VCs are out there announcing big funds? So there is money, but it's not being deployed. What's that all about from your perspective?
Yeah. So, we think a lot about this for sure. I think, one of the answers is just the timing component, right? Those fundraisers take, in some cases years, and they're just finishing now, and then it's coinciding with a market that is, a little bit shaky at the moment, trying to find some footing. So, those funds are going to have to get deployed, and they will, and there are still really good opportunities in the space. I think the threshold for discipline and the threshold for, companies really taking a more conservative approach to investing and cash flow is going to be really important during this phase. But we look at it as look, there are great companies that are still around, right? They're innovating in our key focus areas, and this is an opportunity to find them and kind of support them and invest behind them, even the ones inside our portfolio that have capital needs, and pick up share and do so in a way that is attractive to us, right? Prices are coming under pressure, and instead of just watching and seeing what happens, is another example of being thesis driven allows us to kind of double down on our high conviction companies and double down on our theses and pick up share in these companies that are innovating in our key focus areas, so that in 2 or 3 years we can kind of look back and say, reevaluate our thesis, and hopefully a lot of them have come to fruition. That's what we had done over the last 5 years. It's kind of worked well for us so far. So we really look at this opportunity we look at this time period as an opportunity. I think the funds that you mentioned, probably, they're going to have to deploy capital eventually. So I think that they're also looking for these opportunities. I think that the scrutiny has gone up. I think that we're in a world that values cash flow above all else. So we got to be really particular about what we're investing into. It's not just, marketing. We got to see kind of strong LTV unit economics and kind of invest
Yep.
behind growth there. So the opportunities are still there. We're just a little bit harder to find at the moment, but we're paying close attention.
And I think what the lesson to founders is also to pay close attention to the fundamentals, to make sure that your baseline is good, your NPS scores are good, your customers are happy, the value that you derive from the customer, the CAC versus LTV equations, like basic stuff, like the most basic of basic, rather than getting into advanced metrics. Is it also fair to say then that for startup founders to understand that this is more a buyer's market than a seller's market, that valuations are not going to be at their peak levels as we have seen over the last couple of years, that maybe in the past investors have felt like they've overpaid, and that has also brought about this correction. And that's one thing that startup founders should be mindful of, that valuations have to be much more realistic.
Yeah, I think one thing we're seeing is, like you said, valuations come down. We've been a global investment firm since we started, and it's always been the case that I think venture and valuations in Europe and some parts of Australia have been a lot more realistic, to use a word that you just used, which I think is a good one, a lot more realistic. And we're just seeing, it's a cycle, right? We're seeing kind of the US now sort of catching up to that, and prices and valuations are becoming a lot more realistic. And I'm sure they'll go through another cycle where they become frothy again, we'll kind of work through those cycles with discipline, right? We're not momentum investors. We're not trying to kind of push capital into these big attractive shiny opportunities as they come up. We're really trying to stay disciplined and identify the really good opportunities, like you said, where we're sort of back to fundamentals, and with a clear path to profitability behind a real thesis that we've created in the space. And we'll continue to do that, whether or not, valuations are coming under pressure, or whether or not, the market swings again and things become expensive. So as long as we, look at it through that lens, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's the important lesson to take away, that investors are out there, there's money to be deployed. It's not business as usual, but there is activity as usual, and it's not like anybody's gone anywhere. It's not like the sports tech space is going anywhere. We're here to stay, and this is a long game. Just got to ride out this wave.
And if I would just say, like, a really good point. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur in the space, if you're a company, and this is kind of a difficult time, yes, we can kind of say stay disciplined, focus on cash flow. I know, I think it's a hard decision to make when you sacrifice growth for profitability, and you might not necessarily want to do that, and those are tough board conversations that you have with your board. But I think if you're an entrepreneur in the space, focus on your customers, right? Don't use this opportunity as a way to just like increase prices, with inflation and nickel and dime your customers. Like, this is a time to like really hunker down and make sure that your customers stay really sticky, right? And that could be, sacrificing maybe some revenue in the short term. But if your product is extremely sticky, and if you have a really good relationship with your customers, and you can kind of increase in retention, then you can kind of find a way, if you can build that customer base, find a way to monetize that over time, via the trust that you've built. So I know this is a difficult time, for everyone, but I think it's a unique time to build a lot of trust and authenticity with your customer base, despite that potentially hitting your top line in the short term. I think that's going to pay dividends in the long term. So invest in your customers during these time frames, I think.
Yeah, I think Jeff Bezos has a cliche, but I think valuable lesson that at every meeting, at least for a number of years, apparently he used to do this, that every team meeting that Amazon had, there would be another chair, an empty chair sat next to him. And that was always the chair for the customer, to make sure that blank voice, or there is a voice, I don't know, there's maybe a better euphemism or a bad joke in there somewhere, but the idea that the customer has the seat at every table that you're conversing at, I think that's an important message to convey. Let's change gears a little bit. I want to talk about EP Golf Ventures, right? And I know that was a new initiative that you guys came up with last year, partnership with the PGA Tour. We've seen funds partner with leagues or leagues getting more active. We've seen the NBA now publicly taking equity positions in startups. We've seen the NFL do this with other funds in the past. Walk me through that thesis and how does that help? Does that mean, for example, that that fund is only focused on golf-based products or fan engagement for golf, like everything is around centered purely on golf, or is there more to it? Like, just walk me through that story a bit.
Yeah, for sure. It's something we're really excited about. Um, I mentioned earlier that everything we do was sort of with the intention of stripping out conventional venture risk, but by preserving a lot of that venture return. And one example of that is through structure, right? How do we create unfair advantages through structure? So this is an example of that. You know, golf is a big area of focus for us. It's a growing sport. The pandemic accelerated that, but I think the profile of customer is and has been very static over the last 50, 100 years, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow the sport. And PGA of America has a mission to grow the sport. We have a mission to grow the sport and create interesting investment opportunities through technology and otherwise. So we've partnered with them to do that and invest behind some of these companies with similar missions. So yes, it is a golf fund. It's a fund to invest behind golf opportunities. But again, that just like us, that could be broadly defined. It could be a company that's innovating in weather, and we can apply that to golf, or a company with biomechanic and AI biomechanic technology, and vision, computer vision AI, and we can apply that to golf to create better form and prevent injuries. So there are a lot of different interesting opportunities within golf, or to take existing technologies and apply them to golf in order to grow the game. And by growing the game, increasing the size of the pie within golf, and invest behind those opportunities to create value. So I think this is a really good time to get in the space. Obviously we've been watching the news with Live Golf. Golf is just booming, and we're excited to participate.
Yeah, you mentioned computer vision based AI for golf tracking. We've seen, I think you've already made an investment or two. I think I saw Sportsbox AI, which does markerless tracking. There are quite a few players in this space. And I think golf is one of those sports where it takes to technology pretty easy. So yeah, I think there are a lot of cool things that will come from that partnership. Looking forward, 2023, as we come out of this correction, I don't know, is there a horizon that you look at and say, okay, we're maybe another 3-6 months to it, or maybe it's to the end of the year? And in that time, what is Elysian Park up to? Like, what are your future plans? Which direction do you as a fund head as we look at the rest of this year?
Yeah, I think this phase of Elysian is exciting. We mentioned Sports Plus, the opportunities in health and culture. I think technology and commerce has been an area that we've participated in extensively over the last 4 or 5 years. I think health and culture is one that we're just starting to participate in, and we built a good sort of starting portfolio, but we have kind of visions to make potentially a more platform approach, as opposed to kind of one-off point solutions. So we're building interesting theses in these areas within sports health and sports culture. And for 2023, for me personally, that's a big area of focus. And I think we're, if we're in a baseball game, we're in the second or third inning of, in terms of like what these industries look like, and how they interact with sports more broadly. Health has just become a massive buzzword, right? Health and wellness. We've actually coined, Pete Baselica, a partner at the firm, has coined the term for us internally, what we call human awesomeness, right? Health and wellness can mean so many different things, but we're we're trying to optimize human awesomeness, and there's so many ways for humans to be awesome. And we really want to, and it's become more of a focus for these people to just quantify what awesomeness is. And we're really fascinated by that, consumer behavior, and we really want to start to be leaders in this space. So that is a big area of focus for us for 2023 and beyond. And we're just getting started in this area.
I saw Fitt Insider coined a term which is kind of related. I think they call it the quantified athlete, which is basically, and not athlete is not just professional, but basically every individual who's active, and they have different devices and different ways in which they track their body's performance from everything from metabolic to sleep to whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I prefer human awesomeness. I have to say it's a bit more fun, shall we say, than quantified athlete. All right.
Yeah. It's great. I love it. I got to give credit to Pete on that one, but it's you have these buzz terms like health and wellness that are so overused. So it's a fun one.
Yeah, human awesomeness brings a smile to my face. Max, for any startup founder, if they want to reach out to you, where do they do that? LinkedIn, your email, something? So you want to share your coordinates?
Yeah, sure. So you can reach out to me at max@elysianpark.ventures. Anytime. Would love to hear from you if you're a startup or an investor in the space. What I just encourage people is, we talked a lot about sports, and if you're listening to the show, you're probably a fan of sports, but we are widening the lens on this. So if you're an investor or a company innovating in a space adjacent to sports, or if you're trying to break into sports, we always say at Elysian Park, it's sports, how you consume it, how you interact with it, but also how you define it, right? Like, we're changing how you define sports, and gaming is a perfect example of that. And I don't think anyone referred to video games as sports 10 years ago, but they do now. So please just, if you're in and around the industry, please reach out anytime.
And especially if you have a weather app, it sounds like that seems to be a problem area that EP Golf Ventures is looking for somebody in. But fair shout.
More on that soon.
Max. More on that soon. Thanks, Max, for sharing your coordinates. As always, you can reach out to them. Elysianpark.ventures is the website, and Max gave us email, max@elysianpark.ventures. All right, my last question, Max, before we all go home. I am not going anywhere. I'm just sitting in this hotel room, and you're also at home. By the way, just a little comment, people who are watching the podcast, Max and I had a bit of fun with our backgrounds. I don't know which is more boring or more interesting, my gold curtains in this hotel room or Max's personal bedroom, but we'll leave that for you guys to tell us. But my last question before we wrap it up is, as you said, we're all sports fans here and love to be part of this industry. So as a sports fan, I'm curious to know what has been your favorite sporting moment, either as a fan or one you participated in yourself. Curious to hear.
Yeah, if you're watching this on video, please don't judge my my messy room. But as it relates to sports moments, man, that's tough. I have a few. I think the one that stands out the most is Game 7. It's probably, given our affiliation with the Dodgers, it's going to be a controversial one. But Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS, I think it was Yankees versus Red Sox. I was young. I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and I was there with my dad, and that was one of those, Aaron Boone hits the home run in the 11th inning, the walk-off to beat the Red Sox in the height of that rivalry. That was like one of those, defining moments for me in sports growing up. It helped me kind of fall in love with the sport and with sports more generally. So, I probably wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for that moment. So that's got to, top the list as favorite sports moments.
Fair play. I mean, if that's the one that brings you here, then yeah, that's gotta top the list. Good shout. Thanks so much for joining us, Max. Look forward to hearing more from you and seeing all the great stuff that Elysian Park continues to do. Maybe you'll find a way to do something together at some point. But until then, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. That's a wrap for another episode. All this month, we're bringing you a series of investors. It's a pretty stellar lineup of new and old funds and interesting people that I'll be talking to. So stay tuned for that. See you guys in a week. Ciao.